Hey, this is Mosquito, also known as Chris. Welcome to the shop, and today, well, we're gonna needlessly ruin this thing and figure out why this isn't gonna work as I was originally hoping. So there's a lot of talk in this one, a lot of talk about radiators and fans and all that kind of crap. So save the length of your intro and we'll just start working on that. Alright, so what I've got here is just a little piece of cardboard. I put it underneath here, and then I put it in there that way. And then I just kind of traced out 3 of these little hex patterns, so 2 that I left, and then 1 that I cut out. So basically, I want to add another hex piece here because I'm going to be putting the radiator in, and this fan is going to end up about right about there. Sorry, right about there. And there's just a big chunk right here that kind of gets into the space where the fan is going to be. So I'm just going to basically line these 2 up with those 2 and then trace out for this so that I can go ahead and cut that out with the Dremel afterwards so I can get a little bit better airflow. Okay, so now I'm actually starting to debate how I want to cut this out because I don't know that I'll be able to cut it out with a Dremel very well. Just because the size of the wheels and whatnot might make it relatively difficult to get a clean look, and then in order to stay, you know, far enough away from all of the different spots, you know, like the corners so I can file this in, I'm barely going to be cutting through. So I'm almost wondering if I should just drill it out and then file back the rest of it. That might be what I do. And I do have one that will take me home to an inch. So I think that's the way I'm going to do it. That's probably better anyway. So there we go. Now it'll just be a matter of cleaning that up with the file. The whole radiators actually ended up shifting up. So these were the original 2 holes up here and there, you know, that I had for the original mod, but I moved it up about that far just to get a little bit of extra clearance down at the bottom, just somewhere to try and mount a pump. So we'll see how that works out, but overall, I think that'll work. So because I moved the fans forward, or am moving the fans forward, to get the radiator all the way against the front wall to have a little bit of space in the back, I had to cut out a little bit of this, I guess you'd call it a shroud, a little light. I don't even know what to call it, but anyway, I had to cut some of that out, essentially because of all that stuff being shifted forward, but then still having the option to use that so that it still fits in where it's supposed to, and then this bottom section can still go onto that, and theoretically it should still be okay. I might lose a little bit of luminescence right in the front, but really not too worried about that. Honestly, if it really looks bad, I'll either paint the front edge of the fan white or I'll just skip it all together because I'm really not that hung up on having the LEDs underneath it. But yeah, good news, radiator's in, holes lined up, and you can see that little hex right there, so you can see about how much of that it was blocking off for that fan, so I think that'll help quite a bit. Now we're just gonna have to keep fitting parts in here and see what we come up with. Alright, so problem time. this is what I was hoping to use. This is a Hardware Labs Black Ice Nemesis. No, Hardware Labs Nemesis GTR 240. And this is around 54 millimeters thick. I think it's like 53 and change. And this is what I had been mocking up with and I wanted to use just because it's a little bit thicker. Okay, now this is all numbers coming from Hardware Labs, so take it with whatever grains of salt you like or whatever your preferred seasoning. Supposedly this is like a 1100 watt radiator, so you're supposed to be able to dissipate 1100 watts worth of heat effectively with this radiator. Now keep in mind that might be the maximum amount that this can dissipate, but what they don't tell you is what kind of liquid temperature that is. So I mean, to say that, yeah, this can dissipate 1100 watts of power, you're probably not going to be looking at liquid temperatures in the 35 to 40 range. You're probably looking at a lot higher than that because the way these things work is the higher the temperature difference between the liquid that it's trying to cool and the ambient air temperature, the more efficient it's going to be. So if you're looking to try and get your water temperatures down to like 32 degrees and you're only like 27 degrees Celsius ambient temperatures, that's going to be pretty tough. I mean, you're going to be looking at a lot of radiator space and or a lot of air movement. So the 1100 watts, grain of salt, it's going to get pretty warm before it actually starts dissipating 1100 watts. That said, that would be more than enough for the system that I'm planning on running in here. I mean, it's an ITX system, so how crazy can you go, right? But anyway, going back to the problem here, I wanted to use this radiator because it was a little bit thicker and it'd have a little bit better thermal capacity. However, that 54 millimeter height is just too tall. So it just starts to hit. I'm going to use a GPU riser, obviously. If I'm putting a radiator down here, I can't put a GPU because GPU is, about that high. So going to use a riser card, maybe not this one, maybe a different one, but it's a little bit too tall. I could probably force it and get it to fit. Yeah, that's not good because that puts a ton of strain on that and the motherboard. So unfortunately, I think this is going to have to be out unless I come up with a different way to mount it, which I might look at later. But some of my other options, this is a Hardware Labs Black Ice GTS. So this was the version before the Nemesis series, which is that new version. And this is the lower profile version. I do have, this one's a little bit more beat up because it's kind of my test fit radiator and testing radiator. But I do have another version of this one that I might use instead of this one if I went this route. So the Nemesis GTS is supposed to be, again, salt, good for 750 watts. And I mean, that's a lot. Whatever, all that other stuff besides. So this obviously fits because there's plenty of room here and it more than easily clears it. And I really, really like Hardware Labs radiators. They are some of my favorites. However, one of the other options that I've been thinking about is this is an AlphaCool XT45. So whereas the Nemesis was 54 millimeters, this one is about 45 millimeters thick. So I get a little bit bigger radiator than just the regular Hardware Labs GTS or a standard ST30 from AlphaCool. So if I go to install that, we can see that that also barely clears. But I mean, that would provide me with enough room, and this should be also sufficient to cool it. The things that I like about the Hardware Labs radiator more than this one is the fin densities. You can kind of see, the fins on this are a lot more spaced out that way than these guys. And I think these just do a little bit better job of dissipating heat, but these are also, strong in their own suit in that if I'm going to go with lower RPM fans and going for quiet, these are almost always my choice just because they're a little bit more open, so they restrict the airflow a little bit best. But now I've got to decide between this or the GTS Hardware Labs, or do I try and mod a little bit more to see if I can fit this in there still? Gets tough. So that's what I'm going to try and figure out now. Where do I come out at? So if I switch to using slim fans, which I have done in this case before actually. Let's see, so I need an extra 1 and let's see, there's half, so 20/32, which is 10/16, which is 5/8, roughly an extra 1 5/8. And how thick was this radiator? This was roughly 1 3/4. So that could be a possibility. So what I'd have to do, what I'm looking at now is if I pretty much permanently affix this to the case, so like right now you can take it off, you wouldn't really need to take it off anyway, but anyway, if what I did was I'd have to mod this a little bit to fit, because right now I'm just a little bit out from being able to catch that. So what I would end up having to do basically is kind of what I had to do with the light shroud, but if I wanted to do that, I'd have to basically cut into this and just cut a little section out of it so that I can fit my radiator there. And actually I should make sure that I can fit this. Okay, yeah, so that'll fit between those screws. So so that is an option if I wanted to go ahead and mod this just to lengthen that a little bit more. I could get this in. I'd have to cut out the bottom of the case pretty much entirely at that point. But the question is, would it be worth it? I might have to set up some testing with those little fans and see what I can come up with, because it might be. Right now I'm on the Silverstone website and I'm just looking for the specs on these low profile fans. These are the ones I've got. Let's see, 800 to 2000 RPM, static pressure 0.3 to 1.52. Let's see here. This is, probably not enough. Huh. All right. We got some stuff to figure out, I guess. So yeah, we'll have to figure that out and probably start working on GPU mounts and getting the radiator mounted on the next one. But yeah, we'll have to figure out what we do with that radiator, because yeah, that ain't gonna work. All right. As always, thanks for watching, and appreciate those of you that stuck around this long. And I will catch you in the next one. This isn't actually on. I just thought it'd be entertaining, but probably not. See you in the next one.